In this lesson we're going to look at the class structure and what is optional and what is not optional. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, I'm going to show you how you can write a simple class in Java, and all you need to do is class, the keyword class. I'm going to call it sock, like a sock that you wear. And then I'm going to open and closing brackets, and this is a class in Java. Okay, now I can bring this down here, and that's also fine, and put nothing else, or I can just have it like this. This is a class in Java. It's, nothing much happens here, but it's a legal class in Java, and what I'll show you, if I go and save it, and I'm going to save it in my, and I'm just going to override that one because I had it there before. Let's replace that one. Okay, so I'm just going to go here and open my terminal. Okay, I'm just going to bring it down there, and I'm going to go to cd temp, to my temp directory, and let's compile it, javac, and I'm going to say sock dot java, and if I compile that, and let me just bring this one here as well so you guys can see what's happening here. Let's go to that temp directory, and okay, I'm just going to put that there. Okay, and I'm just going to delete this sock over there. Okay, so you see I've only got that one that I saved. I don't have a sock class file yet. So if I compile it, and there it compiled it, and now I've got a sock class. So this is the simplest class form of class that you can create in Java. There's not much happening here. You can't really run it. I can show you what happens if we try and run it. If I say Java, not in capitals now, Java sock, just like that without the Java, I want to run it, and it's going to complain because it doesn't find an entry point for the Java virtual machine, but it is a class, as you can see, and we will be writing classes later on. It's just to show you that this is a legal Java syntax of a class. And we're going to go further. Okay, now that we know how to write a simple class, let's look at the actual structure of a Java class, what it entails, what is in it, and what's optional and what's not optional. Okay, here I've got a simple class. Not as simple as other one. I've got an accessor here. So this access modifier is optional. Okay. Then you have to have start the class you're going to write the code with the keyword class. Then this is the programmer supplied name. So you give the name of your class, you give it a meaningful name, and you see it starts with a capital. This is not a syntax rule. It doesn't have to be, but it's recommended to have camel case. So this is one word, another word, simple class, and you start camel case, a capital there, then a capital, and so on. Then you have to have an opening bracket for your code in your class. This is the class body. This is where your code will appear in this class. Then you'll have a closing bracket. Okay. Then you can also end it with a semicolon, which is optional. Okay, so this is a basic syntax or structure of your class. Now let's go to the next slide. You've got a more complicated, let's say busier class. Let's see, we build on from the previous one. These are known as comments. This is a Java doc comment, which is used to write with this tool. You write your documentation of your program for other users to see. Okay, this is a multi-line comment. Sorry, there's spelling mistake there. This is a multi-line. You see this one, it starts with 2 stars and a star followed by a /. This one here is a multi-line comment, so you can have various lines here. Okay, this one for yourself. This is a Java doc. This is a multi-line comment. It's not for the documentation, it's just for yourself while you're designing the code. And then you also got a single line comment. You see here, I've got a single line comment after this line of code here. And I've got another single line comment here. So you can add comments anywhere in your program, and your compiler, when it compiles, it ignores these. It doesn't give me, it ignores it because it's for yourself. You writing a comment for yourself. Okay. Then you can have a package, and we will still talk about package in the future lessons, but a package, if you do use, has to be the first line of your code, not necessarily the first line of everything in here, because you can have comments before the package, but package has to be your first line of code. And this keyword package, you can only have one in your class. You cannot have a class belonging to 2 different packages, or you could have nothing. Okay, you could have it, it's optional, but if you, so it's 0 or 1. Then the second line after your package is your import statements. Okay, and in an import statement, you can have no import statements, which then you would have the default java.lang package, but you can also import various classes and so on using your import statements, which I did discuss previously. Okay, then here you'll see I've got an access modifier I did discuss this in the previous slide. So here in this line, I'm declaring a field variable. Now field variables come before or after your methods. Here you see this block here. I've got I've got variables, and also over here. So this is an access modifier. Then I've got a primitive type. Now this one, this can also be optional, but your type in this case, it cannot be optional, it's a must. Then you'll see I've got a field variable name, and here I've got another one, which is programmer supplied. Okay. Then this is an assignment. I'm assigning a value of type int, of type integer, to this reference. So this is a reference that points to that value. Now in a field variable which is outside the class, it's optional. If you don't provide this, if you take away this equals 10 and you just put the semicolon there, then it will default, as it's an int will default to 0. If it was a string, it would default to null. Okay. Then you, like here, that one there, I've got an int. Here I've got a class variable name that is of type string. It's a string which is a class. So there's a primitive type and there's a class type. And there's another programmer supplied variable, the same as what's happening here. I'm just using a string here. Okay, this is a special word, static, where this one you see here I've got private int field variable equals to 10. Here I've got public, which doesn't mean it's optional. I could have added private as well, but static. Now static is a special keyword that means that this is not a field variable. Now field variable means that when you create different objects of type SimpleClass, each object would have its own field variable. You could have various objects, but when you call it static, it means that it is a class variable, meaning that there is only one. You can have 100 objects, but this will, all the objects will just have this one class variable. Okay, it's only one. Think of it as only one. Okay, that's the app, and obviously it's optional, and if I remove it, then it would be a field variable. Okay, now here what I want to show you is the actual method signature, the method part. You'll see here I've got the public class SimpleClass, and I'm finishing it over there. And then I've got a field variable here, I've got another field variable there, and I've got a static, a class variable here, which I've initialized to my name, my cat, and I've got a class variable here, which I've initialized to that variable. Okay, but in the middle here, I can have, now I could have all these on the top, and you would usually write all this, you wouldn't write it like that. I'm just showing you that you can put it there or there, but I tend to put all my variables on the top and then my classes below it. It's just not neater. You could put all your classes first and then your variables at the bottom, or you can mix it if you want, but because Java doesn't mind. But this is a class. Now what makes it different to a class? How do you know it's a class? Is you will have a bracket, a name with a bracket. The bracket doesn't have to have any variables in it, parameters, called parameters in this case. But if you want to pass values to the method so it uses it, then you will declare it there as parameters. And here I've got two parameters of type ints, one called x and one called y. Okay, so you can have an optional accessor in the method. In this case, I could have had void, like in the main method you saw before. Void means it doesn't return anything, but yeah, I'm returning something. I'm returning an int value. Okay, so I am returning an int value, and you have to give it a name to your method. I'm calling it add, because I'm taking two values that I'm passing in, a x and a y integer, and then I'm adding them together, assigning it to an int result, because it's an int I'm passing there. I'm assigning it to an int result, and I'm returning the result, and this return the result, you see it's an int. I'm returning it, that's why I'm indicating an int there. Okay, this, like I said, this part here is known as the method signature, and the parameters are optional. This here is an operator, which means plus. You could have had minus, divide, and so on. We'll look at operators as we progress through the course. Now, where here I mentioned before in a field variable, and I'm talking specifically about the field variable, if you don't assign it a value, then it defaults to 0. That rule doesn't apply inside a method. Inside the method, it's known as a local variable. This variable here is only local to this block of code here. It's not accessible from outside. Okay, we'll come to that as well later on. But what I'm saying here is your local variables, you have to assign it a value. You can't leave it just int result. It won't default. Okay. So in this case, if I passed 5 and 5 there, it would be 5 plus 5, and it would assign the result of 10 to result. Okay, so that's an operator, like I mentioned before. Here, the semicolon on these statements are required. These over here, all these semicolons are required. This is, like I said before, it's a keyword in Java, meaning I'm going to return a result. And you have to have the closing and opening brackets of your code, block of code inside here. And this semicolon over here is optional, just as if this one, if you had one at the bottom here, would also be optional.